between tonight and tomorrow.
Matt Joe Gow is Between Tonight and Tomorrow. The album is just released, and here is Matt to tell us how it feels to finally have it out in the shops.
Sometimes I lay awake at night, hear the clock tick, see only when on the moon.
Yeah, the record's called Between Tonight and Tomorrow. As I showed you, like, there it is there. And as you can see, I have shorter hair, which shows that we were delayed a little. Well, this is just the vinyl, actually. The vinyl is different to the CD. I went with this cover, and that comes out. That comes out, tomorrow. What's that? March 10. It's been a lot of, like any record, is a lot of work to get it to that point, but especially with this one, with what the.
So when did the process begin? When did you start thinking about this record?
Gee, it was a couple years ago now, off the back of Break, Rattle and Roll. We were sort of at a high point because that one did quite well for me and won the Music Victoria Award. And so we're doing a lot of touring.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of touring, playing a lot of festivals. And I wanted to make a different record to that one. That one was a really full record. I was confident as a producer. I'd produced a couple records at that point, and so that record I wanted to try really see how far I could push what I felt Americana was. So I sort of threw everything I could at the wall to see what would stick, right? So that was that record, and then this one, I felt I wanted to try something different. So we stripped it all back, and I thought, with an opposite mentality, I thought, what is really essential to the song? Like, essential. And if it's not essential, we pulled it off. Even if it was a beautiful piano part, even if it was a beautiful backing vocal from the lovely Katya who sings in my band, I'm like, no, is that essential? So we stripped it back to most of the time 4 or 5 instruments, just a band, and then one feature instrument. And I thought that was the most direct way to get the songs across, because it is a really introspective record, and I just wanted to try to make an album that was really honest. And I found a lot of records these days, whether they apply a lot of effects, certainly in the pop world, but even in the genre I exist, there's a lot of production techniques. And I thought, I have the band right now that we can just put a few mics up and get a good sound, and just not really do anything else to alter that. And we tried to even have no reverb on the album. We tried to apply absolutely nothing, but some stuff was just
like?
You know what? I think it sounded good, but I think it was just too much. It would have been too much for an audience. They would have had too many people going, whoa, what, but it's still a very dry record. It's a very dry record. But I wanted it to sound good. I didn't want my ego to get in the way and have a stylistic approach where I was tied to anything and like, we are going no reverb or no. No, I still wanted to sound good, but I just wanted the overall sonic aesthetic to be nothing that wasn't needed, and a really honest approach where the veil was off and you could just hear a band. That was the idea.
Gotcha. So with the songwriting, is there anything that ties the songs together that make up this record? A mood, a thought,
definitely.
In your mind?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. There's a few themes that run behind it, and one is the theme of kind of the circle of life, in terms of birth, death, rebirth. That runs through a few songs. Till My Whole Heart Burst. It runs through We Are Born. It runs through Closing In, which is the finishing track, which sings about an entire life together with someone from the start of a relationship through your years, and then one of them passing away, which is hard to do in 4 minutes. So I tried to get that concept.
Is there
running
a longer
underneath.
version somewhere?
There's probably a few verses cut out somewhere. Yeah. So that's one of the themes that runs through the record. Again, a really introspective record, and an album that was made at quite a difficult time for myself. My mother passed away. We were all locked down here in Melbourne. I couldn't get back to New Zealand for a long time. So a lot of that a lot of the album is made in a sort of cathartic, for me, a cathartic process. But like with anyone's life, there's a lot of really upbeat moments. Go Ahead, Celebrate is a really upbeat moment about trying to take stock of what you have. Between Tonight and Tomorrow is about trying to hold on through some of the dark moments that might come to you late at night at that time between tonight and tomorrow. And I think that seems to have resonated with people. That was the recent single. So I think it's hopefully a diverse album, and I'm going to go on record saying I think it's my best album. It's my fourth.
There you go. Somebody's got to say it, right?
Yeah. I think it's my best album. Well, you know what? When I took the title track to my band, Between Tonight and Tomorrow, they're pretty objective, and like they'll tell me straight up, and most of them said, "Oh, that Between Tonight and Tomorrow, that's your best song."
In the in-between, where it hits you between the night and tomorrow. So try and hold on. In the in-between, between the night and tomorrow.
I thought we had something special there, and I built the album around that song.
Who's playing the guitar on that track? It's very Mark Knopfler-esque.
Yes. So that's Andy Pollock, my longtime guitarist. That solo, that's an example of a song that some songs I come to my band and they're just a demo of me and a guitar, and I try not to flesh it out. That was an example of a song where, to my guitarist's credit, like I'll go, no, it needs to sound like this, and the delay has to be like this, and the part is like this, and he'll go, okay, and he'll sort of do it, and I'll be like, no, the delay is not long enough. And so it's actually, to a guitarist's credit and co-producer as well, sometimes you'll give them the reins for a solo, which is actually easier for a guitarist a lot of the time. And sometimes you'll say, no, here's the solo. I've played it. You need to play it in your way, but how I've written it and what I'm directing you to do.
Your way, but the way I did it.
Yeah, exactly. But it needs to sound like my head, like what's happening in my head. And that's the sign of a good guitarist too, when they can go and do that and take your vision and your direction, and then they can execute it. And I think he really did a good job, because that instrumental on that one, it's stunning. And you're right, it is Knopfler-esque. I wanted it to be a little bit like a little bit dreamy, add a dreamy element to the song, and at that point we bring in the strings and we bring in the tambourine, and it lifts, and it's sort of a hook solo that repeats twice. So I'm glad you picked up on that. Yeah, Knopfler-esque. I like that. He'd like that.
Good. So the album opens with a track called Shipwreck. Why is that at the top of the record?
Yeah, no, shipwreck's no place to start. After they break your heart, don't you feel my cup with those salty tears? This ship's been sunken for years.
Well, I really liked how it opened with me smacking my E string on the guitar, and it kind of goes in and out of tune because I whack it so hard, and it kind of sets the tone like, this is a ragged album. Like you're gonna get, like, we're just hitting it. And then the song itself, I thought, was a nice example of how my songwriting has progressed over the decade from my first album. So that song in particular, Shipwreck, incorporates elements of like Southern gospel, bluesy, lots of blue notes, and a really stylistically, it harks back to like, you could go through like Black Crowes, back through to Creedence. So there's that vibe, but there's that sweet vibe as well, a sweet element from Katya, who's singing on the second verse with me. And you can hear us, we're not perfectly in time with each other. She's kind of singing the verse how she wants to. I'm singing it how I want to. We're not matching those perfectly, which I really like. And I think it's an interesting metaphor, the concept of like a shipwreck, in terms of, I think the lyrics are talking about, oh honey, you don't want to start here with me. I'm not, this is no place to start. Like
Right.
this shipwreck is, you know, we've been sunken for years. So that's the idea behind that lyrically, and I just really like the song. Again, it's got a blazing slide solo. It's the sound of a band in a room, and I thought it was a nice introduction to the record.
Yeah, yeah. Now you mentioned Southern Soul, and I had written down Southern Soul next to "Go Ahead and Celebrate,"
Yes,
which is
very much.
well, you have a little intro before that, it's just harmonica, and actually the harmonica kind of starts there on the album and kind of is heard quite a bit throughout the rest of the track. So
yeah,
tell me.
You got good ears, Marty. You got good ears.
I can still hear even at my advanced age. Yes.
I'm gonna tell you something more. I'm gonna tell you something more. No, darling, we've all got wounds to heal, wounds to heal.
I wanted this album to be kind of, the band are used to bolster up the songwriting and me as the frontman on this one, because in Break, Rattle and Roll, my last one, there were like 10 of us. I mixed my vocals back. We did a very full band sound. This one is built around me and my guitar, and then we're just plucking a few people behind me and we're just having a band. So the concept of that, and the harmonica plays a big role when I'm solo. It's like my other voice. So yeah, it features on about 5 songs on this one. I think it's probably my most harmonica driven record. And on that one, and Go Ahead Celebrate, yeah, there's a subtle, almost Neil Young-esque intro. And I know Harvest was one of the blueprints for our production. And that's the intro to that song. And then it comes blazing in with the harmonica, and you can hear it's sort of a straight harp. It's played on the rack. And I just feel like harmonica is such a way to just, if you want to just plug energy into a song, just blow a harp down a mic. And that's really what we tried to do with Go Ahead Celebrate. It comes blazing out. And again, that one has a real Southern feel. A lot of people have mentioned it in that song. And that's the progression of my songwriting, incorporating more and more of a lot of the blues that I grew up with. My mother's record collection was full of blues albums, and I didn't quite know how to best incorporate that into the first album, with The Messenger, which is an alternative country record. But then as we branched into what I feel Americana is, I know Americana and alt country are kind of used synonymously, but personally I find them different. I find
definitely, there's definitely a different vibe.
Yeah, I feel like alternative country is one thing. Americana is when you incorporate other traditional elements, whether it's folk, blues, bluegrass, soul. So on that particular song, Go Ahead Celebrate, yeah, there's a sort of bluesy undertone, that Southern undertone, along with the straight country. And yeah, that features a lot on the album, I think.
And of course, when we talk about Southern music, we're talking about Southern United States, really, not Southern Australia. So have you ever?
That's right. Yeah. I've traveled. You know what? I've traveled through it, but I haven't spent a lot of time. I'd like to get there later this year or next year to tour. But essentially, for me, you are the albums you grow up on, right? So, do you know what I mean? Like, you could live in Southern France and grow up listening to hip hop out of New York, and that is what your music taste will be. It's a language. So whilst you grow up speaking English in your English speaking country, if you grow up with African parents listening to African music, then that's what will dictate your influences. There's always going to be, you are a product of your environment. And I like to think that a lot lyrically, I sing about where I grew up a lot. I sing about the cold and the weather in Southern New Zealand, and the relationships and with my whānau, with the partners I've been involved with romantically. I sing about my life, my experiences, but through the lens of the music that I grew up listening to and what meant a lot to me, whether it's Dylan, Creedence, Cash, or Aretha, or whatever it might be.
Okay. So when you're back here in May, I see you have a gig at the Pa Homestead here in Auckland.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what can we expect from this tour?
Man, well, this tour we're hitting all of Aotearoa. We start in Wellington, head up north, and then head all the way down south, finish up at Tussock Country Music Festival. So on this tour, I'll be with my great buddy Karen Fields.
Oh, good. Bring her along.
Yeah. She's a fellow Kiwi. So we'll be touring, and there'll be some of my band, the Dead Leaves, will feature at some shows, like the one at Pa Homestead. So it's going to be a really mixed tour. We'll be playing stuff from my album Between Tonight and Tomorrow that we just talked about. We'll also be playing stuff from Karen and my upcoming collaboration, our duet album
cool.
that
When's
will
that
feature.
Coming?
Don't know when it's coming, but we will have a single coming out, I hope, around May for this tour.
Yeah, sure.
So there'll be that. They'll be touring my songs. They'll be touring Karen's songs, and it'll just be a whole lot of fun. I mean, our last tour we just finished up together was a wonderful experience. It's great being on the road, with your pals. It makes life easy.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Now, one more song I want to touch on before we say bye-bye.
Brother.
Songwriting-wise, I was wondering, how important is the first line to the lyric to the song? Is that how songwriters kind of get going? Because like on Sweet Collapse, I think this first line is took the bandage off and let it breathe. And it seems like, okay, is that like once you have something like that, is that kind of send you off on wherever it is you go from there?
I took the bandage off and let it breathe. So with the blindfold gone, you could see. From the port I kept moving. I said a river to the sea till I was in too deep.
Really interesting you ask about the first line, Marty. That's a really interesting question, because as a songwriter, and I know a lot of songwriters fall victim to this, when you're writing a song, quite often you will lay in a first line that you use as a foundation to establish a melody, rather than just going in that one. So that would be like, took the bandage off, let it breathe. You could be like, da 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 da. But I try to use a line instead. So to answer your question, two parts. The first line of a song is really important to establish, your theme if you can. However, quite often a first line can be at odds with your song, because you've gotten stuck with that first line that you use to build a melody off, and then you went and wrote your lyrics and you couldn't get rid of that first line. That's happened to myself and a lot of songwriters. I have a song called Running on Time where I use a Tom Petty line for the first line, and then I was going to go back and remove that line, right? Because I'm like, that's Tom Petty's line. But then I got so stuck to it, I just go, F it, I'm gonna just keep that line. Because I was so attached to that line. This one, Sweet Collapse, I took the bandage off and let it breathe, is in reference to, the idea of the idea of having lived a life by this point, 4 albums in. Sweet Collapse is actually a sequel to my song Georgia Rose. So I'm further down the journey on this one. Georgia Rose is off my 7 years record, and it's been a popular song for me, especially in my live set. So I wanted to revisit that journey of myself as a songwriter, as a traveling songwriter. So that's what I do on Sweet Collapse. And by this point, we've taken some hits, as most people have if they've lived a little bit. So I talk about that song. I talk about my family. I talk about the losses, and I make reference to Georgia Rose, which is sort of an angelic being in my life that helps me through. And in Sweet Collapse, I just talk about we keep moving forward. We ain't going back. We've got a mission to accomplish, whatever that might be, and we'll find out further down the road. And so that took the bandage off to let it breathe. Took the bandage off and let it breathe is somewhat in reference to, we carry these scars and these wounds, but that we're not going to let them stop us, and that line in particular is just about being able to carry on with the pain that you carry in your life due to the people that you've lost. That's kind of what that song is about and what that line encompasses a little bit.
All righty. Well, we'll leave it right there, and we'll pick it up at the
no problem
at the Pa Homestead in a couple of months, and we'll see you there. It's very
yeah.
cozy place.
I love that place. I played there briefly before, Pa Homestead, Wallace Arts Trust. It's wonderful. I really, really look forward to it. I love coming back to Auckland. I was born in Auckland. My sister lives in Auckland, and it's super cool. We played there. You were at my show there last time. That was a fun gig at the wine cellar. And so this room is a little bit bigger and maybe not quite as grungy. Not quite as grungy. But yeah, I really look forward to it and look forward to getting back in May and look forward to getting this record out there. So anyone who wants a copy can grab one from my website and we'll try to get one out to you.
And I assume they'll be at the merch table on the tour.
They will be, if I haven't sold out of these ones by now, we'll have at least CDs, T-shirts, all that stuff. But I also wanted to thank 13th Floor. Thank you, Marty, and everybody there. And I really appreciate your support for my music and music from Aotearoa in general. Thank you.
It's easy.